everyone. Thank you for joining me. This is a new episode of Mrs. Pinky Thoughts. I am your host, Ms. Pinky, and today we have a special guest. We have the amazing Miss Kira Davis. How are you doing today, ma'am?
Hi, I'm very good, Miss Pinky. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
My
Can you
pleasure.
yes, can you tell our guests and everyone who might not know you a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I am editor at large for redstate.com. I'm a podcaster and a political commentator. I've done political commentating for the last 12 years or so, and you can see me around places. I usually pop up on some TV screen somewhere at some point, but my podcast is Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. And yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at Real Kira Davis, and usually I'm ranting and raving about something on there.
Awesome. Thank you. Before we get into our deeper conversation, please, I'm asking everybody to like and subscribe to the channel. All of my social media is across the bottom. You can like us and join the consciousconservativemedia.net. We are all over there. That's where I keep my channel. And if you happen to like what you see and you want to bless us with a donation, I have my Cash App at the top and also my PayPal. And thank you guys for joining us. So, Kira, how has your week been? I know today's only Tuesday, but I know it's been crazy already.
I know. I know it's only Tuesday, but I do feel like it's been a long week, but we had the long weekend.
Yes.
And yeah, so that now I feel like a little confused almost today, like what day it is. Yesterday, I was still getting back into the week. So today I'm like, oh, okay, it's Tuesday. Now a real week is starting. But I had a good time. It was nice to be, my daughter had some friends over for the 4th, and our town finally did fireworks this year. And that was really nice. It was nice to hear people like out and about and like see a little bit of normal life. That was really nice.
Oh, that was great. We did some fireworks just right outside our house. I posted a couple of shots of that.
Where do you live?
I live in Middle Georgia, Perry.
Right. Okay.
A little bit below Macon. About an hour and a half from Atlanta.
Okay, so you can do fireworks. They're illegal here in California.
Yeah.
I mean, some folks bring them. We went to Arizona last week, and I thought, oh, we should have brought some fireworks back with us, but we totally forgot. So we just have like the lame little poppers, and then you have to go find your fireworks celebration. Yeah, we don't get to do that fun stuff by ourselves anymore.
Oh, I'm sad about that. Can you tell us a little bit about the recall? I know you're pressing for this Newsom recall. Tell us a little bit about how that's going. What you got. I heard you made an announcement someone was running.
Yeah, actually, today some news came in the recall. Assemblyman Kevin Kiley has announced that he's getting into the recall, but I'll just let your listeners and viewers know that the recall has been something we've been working on for a couple of years here in California, actually. The first recall failed. The effort failed to gather enough signatures. It was a recall for Newsom, and some other things that you may not know about were going on in this state at that time that was making life pretty difficult for Californians, including this bill AB5, which is actually, there's a national version sitting in the House right now. It's called the PRO Act, and AB5 made independent contracting illegal. So if you got a side gig, it's basically illegal in California unless you have like a waiver from a special kind of way. So as a writer, I have a writing waiver, but it's still very complicated. It was meant to get at Uber and Lyft. They're so rich, they just ignored it. And then they got an exemption on the ballot and got out from under it. And the rest of us were still suffering under it. It's closed theaters. It's called the gig economy bill because it basically killed the gig economy. So unless you're a union member or you're W-2'd, that's it. And that bill's sitting in the House right now. It's sitting in the Senate. Excuse me. It's already passed the House. Biden and Harris have both said that they will pass it. So it's just important that people know that it's there. Call your senator and tell them that you oppose the PRO Act. They're going to tell you it's a union bill. Technically, it's a union bill, but what it does is it ends side gigs. Like, it will literally make your side job illegal. I don't know how else, but it's just crazy. So,
You
I
want to pay
mean, people
for it too? Like
people
what?
don't believe it. People don't believe it because they're like, how can a side gig be illegal in the United States of America? But it is here in California. It is. So if you braid hair, if you're a cop and you contract out for security, if you're a nurse and you just work independently, you won't be allowed. Those things will be illegal to do. You'll have to be W-2'd by somebody. So anyways, all that was going on in California. We were already suffering. So people were getting upset. That recall failed, but it got resurrected. And it was starting to pick up some steam because then we got a couple more taxes that were really shady, that never should have gone through. We have this terrible homeless issue, which I know you've probably seen all about it on Twitter, and things are getting worse. And then COVID hit, and then it started to gain steam because people's kids aren't in school. No one really knew what was going on. The governor was really being harsh in his lockdowns. I mean, he closed beaches, which is just the craziest thing. And then the French Laundry happened, and that's where it picked up steam. So our esteemed governor, got caught while he was telling everybody else to stay home, don't be selfish, do not leave your home, do not socialize with people, always wear your mask. He got caught at a $20,000 a plate dinner at the fanciest restaurant in the San Francisco Bay Area, with a crowd of 22 of his closest friends. And that was when people had enough. Businesses were closed, businesses were suffering. So the recall took off after that. All the signatures got qualified. It is officially happening. There will be a recall election to recall Gavin Newsom on September 14th. We did that. So now what happens is we go to the recall ballot. And I would love your help in telling people how this works, because a lot of people don't know how this works, and it's discouraging people, I think. And there's not a lot to be discouraged about here. It's good news, except for the fact that the governor has pushed up the date. I think he's thinking if he can make it happen quickly, then his opponents won't have enough time to rev up a campaign, I think. So it's happening on September 14th. So what will happen is there will be 2 questions on this ballot. The first question will be, do you vote to recall Gavin Newsom from his position of governor of the state of California? Yes or no? If you recall him, you're going to vote yes. If you want this guy to go, you're going to yes, recall Gavin Newsom. That is the first question. It's the only question. He's not running against anybody. There's no competition. It is one yes or no question. The second question will say, of the people on this list, who would you like to see replace Gavin Newsom? And then you pick one of those people, and the person who has the most votes on question number 2 will be the next governor. But it's not Newsom running against 6 or 7 other people. He's not running against anyone. He's only running against himself. The question is yes or no. You want him gone? Then whoever's left over at the bottom, that's your governor. So a lot of people are saying that because the Republicans don't have a strong candidate, that maybe this is going to be a failure. But A, Republicans don't need to have a strong candidate to recall Newsom, and B, a very strong candidate got into the race today, Assemblyman Kevin Kiley, who has been one of the lone voices in the California Assembly, speaking up for the little people and parents during COVID. So he's an excellent politician. And I'm sure you've heard we also had Caitlyn Jenner is in there. There's a porn star that runs every time there's an election, Mary Carey. So we have a porn star up for, it's always a hodgepodge of weirdos. It's California.
So how do you think your chances are getting him recalled? How confident are you that he'll be replaced?
I'm 50-50 right now. And the only reason I say that is because I think there are a lot of people in California who want him gone, but feel like it's just useless, that it's a useless endeavor to go out and vote, because they don't know how the recall process works. So I think there's a lot of discouraged people out there, but I think Gavin Newsom, I think he's going to regret the timing of this election. And I think one thing that's going to really help help the voting is that I'm pretty sure, now don't quote me, but I'm 75% sure that Los Angeles School District and San Francisco School District are not going back to school in the fall. And when they don't go back to school in the fall, all hell's going to break loose, because that's when, regardless of party, right, parents are like, we're sick of this, we've had enough. I think California is crossing into over half of the population vaccinated. We're actually doing quite well with the vaccinations. And because we suspect that the Wuhan virus actually blew through here probably 6 months before it even was detected in the rest of the country, our numbers are very low. So there's no reason for teachers' unions to not go back to school, except, as it turns out, they're actually invested in some of the pharmaceutical companies that are making the vaccines.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they don't want to go back until every kid is vaccinated.
They keep moving the goalposts with that. Didn't you say something about you think we should get rid of teachers' unions? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think we should. I think it's time. They're not helpful anymore. I mean, the concept of unions is probably a bit outdated in 2021, but there are a lot of people who are part of unions and like the pay and the influence that comes with collective bargaining. There was a time when we needed unions. There was a time when, during the Industrial Revolution, these companies would take advantage of their employees, and so unions served a purpose. I don't want to pretend like they never did, but just like we moved on from the horse and buggy, to the combustible engine, we have to move on from the union system. It doesn't represent the American worker well anymore. But that being said, if it's a private union within a private company, do what you want to do, right? Everybody can do what they want to do. You want to join, if you're a company owner and you want to support, you want a union in there, great. I do not think that that there should be any such thing as public sector unions. And here's why. Because when you work in the public sector, you work for the American taxpayer. That's your boss. So when you organize, when you do collective bargaining, or when you strike, you are necessarily negotiating against your employer. And who is your employer? The American taxpayer. Only we don't get a seat at the table, right? It's unelected officials oftentimes that are sitting at that table negotiating. And so we don't get to be at the table and negotiate with the unions that are dictating things to us. And that's the problem with the teachers union. They say they're for kids, which is silly because it's right there in the name, and therefore they're for teachers. And so teachers come first, teacher comforts come first, union desires come first. Unions now control the public education system, and the public education system now fails our children spectacularly. So I think the only way to fix public education is to end teacher unions. They're useless. They're a drain, and I don't even think they're useful for bargaining. Teachers can bargain on their own. You don't need a union to bargain for your salary or benefits anymore as a teacher.
Also, can you go a little bit more on unions? We have a commenter who said she didn't really understand unions, and she just knows that it's not popular with conservatives, but the left-wing people. Can you elaborate a little bit more on why you think that is, that disconnect, why conservatives are like no union and why are liberals more pro-union?
Mm-hmm. It is interesting. So there was a time when being pro-union was just kind of being like pro-worker, right? Your dad or your grandfather, like Biden talks about this a lot. He is from the union era. That's the union where a lot of Democrats were, but they were union members. But there was a time when the Democrat Party wasn't a party of the elite or a party of like very wealthy people. It was a party of the working class, and the working class were union people. And so what happened was union people were all kinds of people, Republican, Democrat. It was a good thing. What happened is, as the condition of the American worker improved and unions became less needed, they became more powerful entities. Then they started getting into politics, right? So how do you keep your business going? If a union is a business, how do you keep it going? Well, you make sure that you're advocating for policies that will strengthen your union. You up the dues. You start getting your hands in politics. You start buying politicians. And because many working class Democrats were in unions, then unions kind of became a part of the Democrat Party platform. And then it morphed into union money going to the Democrat Party platform. And now it's split. Now that's why we have this split. To us, it looks like Republicans hate unions and Democrats love unions, but that's not how it started. It just started that unions picked a party. They picked the party to throw in with, and it was the Democrats that they picked. So I don't know that Republicans are anti-union. I think they're anti-Democrat, and that's why you see a lot of Republicans saying that. And also, what unions have come to mean isn't really about being about the little guy anymore. Now unions do stuff like hold our companies hostage. When unions don't innovate, they're representatives for workers. So no, your union should not own half of Ford Motors. It doesn't matter if they work there. They're just the employees. They get compensated for that. But what happens is they hold Ford hostage and make what for a lot of business owners would be considered unreasonable demands. That price gets folded into the price of your car. Now your car is $2,000 or $3,000 more than it would be if you didn't have to deal with the union demands. So those are the ways that unions affect our lives, which is probably why a lot of Republicans are against that, right? Republicans supposedly are low taxes, lower costs, and so that's why there's that split. But for me and for a lot of people who you might label anti-union, I'm not anti-union. I think you should join it if you want to. I don't think you should have to be a part of a union to work. In fact, you don't. That's unconstitutional, as laid out for us by the Janus decision in 2017. So you no longer have to be in a union. And I think when unions hurt the economy, or particularly when they hurt the American taxpayer, then no, they're not good. Just because something is a union doesn't mean that it's good. And I think unions are outdated at this time. Maybe we'll develop further on down the road where we need unions again, and then humans will unionize again. Doesn't mean that once a concept is gone, that it's gone forever. But I don't think unions are helpful.
Awesome. I see what you're saying there. You have been doing political commentary for about 12 years, you said in the beginning. And I want to kind of pick your brain on about the evolution of it, how it was during the Tea Party, like the rise of the Tea Party. You came out, I remember you were on an episode with Sunny, and y'all was speaking on Fox News, and then you broke there, and then you went into, the second half of Obama administration, and we went into Trump, and now we're here. So I wanted you to walk us through how you evolved as a commentator, how you worked within the industry. Can you tell us some tips of being, a conservative, being a minority conservative, things like that?
Yeah, I came in on the Tea Party. I was conservative, but I wasn't very politically active. But having been born and raised in Canada under socialized medicine, Obamacare worried me, and I didn't want to see that come to this country. So that's when I started getting involved, and the Tea Party was really sort of anti-Obamacare. So that's where I got involved, and I started back in those days. We were just new media. We were called new media, or alternative media, and it was just popping up, inspired by the late great Andrew Breitbart, who said, it's time for conservatives and right wingers to have their own avenues of getting stories out, because people think what they're seeing on ABC News or your NBC nightly news or even your morning news, it seems innocuous. People think they're seeing the truth. They assume they're seeing the truth, but they're only getting one part of the story. So I was fortunate to come up in a time when guys like Glenn Beck and Andrew Breitbart and organizations like the Heritage Foundation, there's the Franklin Center, people were starting to really like consider media very important and getting involved. And so what they wanted to do was train conservative bloggers and conservative reporters. So my first 7-8 years, I was traveling to different conferences that were held by organizations owned by big money guys like Glenn Beck. But what they would do is they would train us. They would hold little sessions, and you would learn how to put together a story, how to source your stories, where to find your stories, how to file a FOIA request. They would bring in big names, big people from the news industry, and people who were just breaking into YouTube. YouTube was like a whole new landscape at that time. And we were really lucky to get on the ground floor of that, like having other people pay for our education just because they wanted a trained crew of conservatives out there doing news. And that has morphed into what you see today. In fact, the blog I work for now, Red State, was one of those original blogs that just started out as kind of the conservative alternative voice. It was a place where conservatives could go and write their opinions down and have their opinions read. And now it's one of the biggest blogs in the country. So yeah, it was the wild, wild west, and it's become a lot more corporatized since then. It's definitely difficult being a minority on this side. I guess I don't know what it's like to be a minority on the other side, because I wasn't a commentator when I was a liberal, but sometimes you fight against a quota mentality, which is, well, we have enough Black conservatives here. Like, here's your panel. Here's Kaylee, Kylie, and we just need one Black person. Go find somebody, you know? It's not like it's rare that you're going to see 2 or 3 or 4 Black conservatives on a conservative show. So sometimes you get dismissed by the quota because people will say they have enough, but and then sometimes you're just dealing with all of the regular stuff that comes with being a minority in a majority place, the stereotypes and stuff. I don't know. I've definitely had my incidents where it's been hurtful, or I've run into people that have been cruel, but I truly believe that what God has for you is for you. So to a certain extent, it's sort of meaningless.
Oh, that's great. That's good attitude to have, because now it seems like everybody's just jumping in like me. I didn't get no training or nothing. I just started this, and that's
good.
How I got on, and people are telling everybody to start and just to get in it. But a lot of the times we have in people who getting in and don't know what they're doing or don't know what they're talking about, and then they're fighting people who've been, like, I would say, seasoned. And not saying necessarily a seasoned person always know either, but how do you handle going through the ins and outs of that? You know, dealing with the up and coming ideas, some of the new movements, things like that.
I mean, anything that feels like an expansion of conservative thought to me is exciting to me. Sometimes you get, like, by now, I suppose, like, my annoyance with the Candace Owens of the world is very public. Like, sometimes you get people like that those people come and go, and believe me, they go as fast as they can. They burn bright and then they burn out. And I've seen several of those people come and go over my career. So that's not surprising. And I know that this is basically the entertainment industry. It's just another form of it, but it's news entertainment, newsertainment. So yeah, you're going to have people who are flashy or who excite a reader or a viewer, but the people who stay are the people who find a niche or find an area that interests them, and they hone in on it. You know, my advice for you would be to make yourself an expert on something. That is one of the things that they taught us early on. I can remember many of the seminars I sat through early on. Make yourself an expert on something. You know, I have a friend who did Obama's gun running scandal in like 2011. She just decided she's going to make herself an expert on that. And next thing you know, she's going on Fox News because it's what she wrote about. It's what she talked about. You don't have to have formal training to do this job. There are some things you need to know if you want to be an investigative reporter. That's something different. You know, that probably would take a certain level of education, or at least knowing what you're doing. But the best way to do it is to start. And yeah, that means that there's a lot of people out there who don't know what they're talking about and are talking anyway. But that's the beauty of the internet. Lots of different voices. And the thing is if you're not authentic, eventually people will find you out. And so those people will fade away. If you have something to say, you should say it. And you should say it in as many places as you can.
Awesome. We just heard news that Nicole Hanna, who was the UNC director, she was trying to go for tenure, but the controversy around 619 project had held it up. And apparently she just went over to Howard, and now they just hired her. Did you like how she pivoted on that and how?
I think it's hilarious.
You think it's hilarious? Yes.
Yeah. Well, then she was like, never mind. I'm going to go here after all that. But you know what? I frankly think UNC deserved that. They shouldn't have buckled to that bullying. They said they didn't want her in the first place. It was their decision to make, right? You know, right or wrong, whether or not you believed it. It's not like there weren't other places that she could go, and they weren't denying her. They weren't denying her the ability to teach there. They didn't want to offer her tenure. And I've read her stuff, and it's garbage. And she's actually not a very good writer. So she shouldn't be hired Howard should be embarrassed to have her, actually. Like, forget about what she preaches politically. She is not like an intelligent writer. A lot of times her stuff is garbage. I don't think that she's actually that bright of a woman, to be honest. So good luck, Howard. But, you know, so that's why UNC didn't want her. It didn't really have anything to do. We picked up on that because that's the news story, right? That's sexy. That gets you clicks. But that's not really what the story was. The story was that they didn't think she was qualified for tenure. And they were right. And then they backed down on their own resolution. And so she made them look stupid by making them jump through all those hoops and going to Howard anyway. So
yeah, that was like Greg says in the comment. He said UNC wasn't consistent in their handling of the whole situation. They brought that on themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people in this political climate, they blame the right or the left for certain things, but a lot of times it comes down to their own insecurities and cowardice when it comes to certain situations. Like that's what I see in the infighting with the Republican Party. That's why I started this conversation asking you about the Newsom recall and then talking about things in California, because we have certain people, and I know you know one of them, John Cordella. You had talked to him last One of his winning things, and I keep talking about it because I think it's an interesting point, is y'all were talking about leaving certain areas alone and not trying in certain districts that were D+ whatever. And I'm thinking, well, Kira is in California. The whole area, it's like
the whole state.
You know, you're telling her not to do her job. Like, you just tell her how to do it.
Yeah, he was trying to tell us, why am I going to put money? You know, Republicans shouldn't put money in districts that are going to be lost. But it's like, how do you ever win? I just didn't understand it. You know, like this is, and his point of view is typical for a Republican consultant class, right? Like, he's not the only one that thinks like that. That's the Republican Party's whole problem, is they don't have any long-term vision. And so it's the idea of, well, hey, if we can't win this district in Baltimore, then we'll never go to Baltimore. We'll never sink any money into it. And I get that political funds are always scarce. Oh, the national committee, their job is to just push stuff around to different people across the country. So I can imagine you're on a tight budget, but at the same time, Democrats have a long-term strategy, and they've been running it for the last 60 years, and it's been very successful. I think at some point you have to look ahead. You have to say, well, what would we like to win, and how do we start? You know, you're not going to walk into Baltimore and win Baltimore in one election cycle, or win Baltimore just because we had 4 years of a President Trump. You know, if I hear one more person tell me that Trump did more for Black Americans than any president, I actually agree with that. But he was there for 4 years, and he was only going to have 8 years at the most. Like, you can't hang an entire movement on one dude who was already an outsider coming in, and so didn't have all of the cooperation he needed on the Hill to do much of anything. So you have to start like planning ahead, and that does mean like letting people run and letting them lose and letting them run again. Most people don't win their first or even second races. The people that win go back. It takes a while to establish name recognition. It takes a while to establish trust. So I just, the attitude that the GOP should just abandon places where there's no possibility to win, it seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy to me, right? We don't have any chance to win here, so we're never going to try to win here because we can't ever win here.
Yeah, I see Rachel, she says Mike Huckabee got 50% of the vote and didn't just waltz right in. I bring her comment up because I noticed that Jeff is one who did an interview with him. And he showed in his interview with him that he didn't just waltz into Arkansas and was like, boom, vote Republican after, you know, they just had Clinton in there. And he wasn't just like, you know, hey, you know, instead he went and talked to locals and got to know the church leaders and things like that. And do you see the Republican Party shifting in that kind of direction, or do you think some of the fighting is about that?
It's always been this way. I think it'll always be this way. And it's not different in the Democrat Party. It's the same in the Democrat Party. You have elites at the top, and then you have your grassroots base. And there's always a war for space within the party, always. It just, some years it's more pronounced. When I came in to this movement, I came in on the back of the Tea Party. Well, the Tea Party was grassroots conservatives versus elite Republicans. And guess what? They all have to live under the same umbrella. They all have to live within the same party. So you are doing this always, this back and forth. It's the same thing right now. It's what we're seeing. And again, you're seeing it on the Democrat side too. It's this balance. We're always fighting for power between elitism and grassroots conservatism. And it's naive to believe that either part works without the other, to be honest. I mean, the thing is that politics is a game, and we call DC the swamp for a reason. And there's a way that there are ways to operate within politics that it would behoove you to understand, at least. And so the elitists give you that, right? The elitists at least give you the understanding for the game. They help. They know where the money is. They know where the skeletons are. They know the things to say or not to say to get business done. It's ugly, but that's politics. And then there is the base, who are just people like you and me, who are like, I don't care what y'all do in Washington, but like, get off my back. Like, how can I get less of you in my life? And whether you're Republican or conservative, if you have power, you want to keep it. That's all that is. It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, so what suggestions do you have for any of us, especially at the Conscious Conservative Network, where we're grassroots and we're trying to get in there and we're trying to go in areas that are not typically paid attention to by the GOP? What advice would you have for people, since you've been doing this for a while, to reach out to voters and reach out to minorities who might not understand or might not even have heard conservatism in a while?
I mean, if I was running the GOP, like the national GOP, and I get that there's all kinds of politics involved that I don't know anything about, but if I was running it, I would, because the GOP does have like a black outreach director. I don't know, it's like, it's just somebody that gets paid for that title, but I would have that person start recruiting programs. That's what the Democrats do. They don't just knock door to door during election season. They have tutoring programs in the inner city, and they have LGBT programs, and they sponsor whatever, like sex ed programs, and whatever their agendas are, that they want to get into these communities. They support them. Look how closely tied Planned Parenthood is to the Democrat Party. And I mean, they're very closely tied, and we know that Planned Parenthoods are hugely disproportional in Black communities. That is because they have this very friendly relationship with the Democrat Party, and they bill themselves as help. They bill themselves as charity, and the GOP has nothing on their side to compare to that. You know, the GOP, who is the GOP partnered with? What they need is an organization or organizations to partner with to say, this is us in your neighborhood helping you. That's what it has to come down to. They've got to make the same kind of investments in neighborhood development that Democrats have been making for 50, 60 years. And now Black communities are intimately tied to the Democrat Party because they mastered that so well, of blending charity work and help. I mean, obviously people like you and me have questions about how much help it's been, but it's still there's nobody else there. You know, there's nobody else there. So Republicans really, and there's so many great organizations, partner with somebody who's already in the inner city somewhere, or in a majority minority community, partner with somebody who's already doing the work, highlight them, have them out to DC to run some workshops. You put a Republican office in one of those buildings, you know, rent out space in the tutoring center and just like rent out an office space. And you're the two guys that work in the Detroit Republican office they become familiar. Like it's a process. And this is what bothers me is Republicans don't want to work this process. They think that something is supposed to just come along and, oh, now we have Trump. Now everything's better. And that's not how this works. The Democrats took their time over decades and decades, and Republicans are going to have to do the same thing.
Yeah, they've been slowly creeping up in different cities and every seat, and they talking about flipping states. One example is we see the conservative punditry class always talking about Black on Black crime in Chicago. Every weekend they list the statistics, and I asked myself earlier, where is the Republicans? There are so many anti-gun violence organizations. Mm-hmm. There is a local GOP. Conscious conservatives are going out there in August, but why aren't there conservatives stop the violence groups or Republican rig?
Thank you.
Everywhere, elephants, everywhere, stomping on guns or something. You know, we have people like Maj Toure that goes out and he teaches firearms, but why aren't the RNC hiring him out just to do a couple of classes underneath the GOP umbrella, just to show, hey, we're not just pointing to the problems that are in these communities, but we're showing up and we have the answers to why they're not getting behind vehicles and things like that. So
I think because the consultant class runs the GOP right now, and the idea of inviting that element into the party feels scary to a lot of people. And, you know, I think a lot of conservatives wouldn't admit it, but the idea of like running through the hood and picking up a bunch of hood Negroes for the Republican Party, it sounds scary. You know? It's like, well, how will these people fit in? You know, or the other thing, and I think to be fair, the other thing is that a lot of white conservatives don't feel welcome in our neighborhoods, and they're scared for obvious and fair reasons. You know, they get rejected, and so they just say, oh, well, then it's not worth it at all, because we're for sure going to be rejected. But you're so right about, like, look, the South Side of Chicago, great example. Where's the lie? It's very violent. Where's the lie there? We all know it's violent. That's not a lie. They're having issues. Oh, then get your asses down there and put on a back to safety parade, put on a back to school parade, put on a Juneteenth cookout where you pass out literature for classes to protect yourself, or how to legally get firearms and legally use firearms to protect yourself. Start organizing neighborhood watches. You know, start sending people into these communities where you help people develop the skills. I mean, I was reading, this is terrible tragedy of these two moms who just stood on the corner, I think of Stony Island in Chicago, where both their sons had been murdered in the drive-bys, and they stood on that corner every day for months just to make sure kids could walk home safely from school. And one of the moms ended up being shot in a drive-by at that very spot. So there are people there who want to change and they want help, and no one's helping, so they're doing themselves. I mean, how powerful would it be for the Republican Party to send in an official delegation and to say, we are going to train you for neighborhood watch so that you have the tools to keep your own neighborhood safe, so that we don't just quote the black on black crime statistics. We can actually say we're trying to improve those statistics because these are Americans who deserve to feel safe in their homes the same way we deserve to feel safe in our homes.
I just wanted to post this comment. I had on last week, and I had Shamika on the show last time, and she was talking about her comment about Carltons and Wills and how it got all mixed up.
Yes, love it.
And you know, our favorite Carlton is Jeff, and I just want to put his comment in here. He says, "Ask her why she hates me so much." And I just want to plug Jeff. He has his show, Fresh Perspective, on YouTube. That's going to come on in a few minutes, in 15 minutes at 8 o'clock. And I just love you guys and what y'all doing over at redstate.com and y'all Saturday morning show. It's Red and Black, right?
Yeah.
And he just had to get that in there. I think he wanted to say hi because
he's annoying. He doesn't listen to me. Also, he thinks Kamala Harris is hot. So
he has this thing.
He does. So you know what I think it is?
My brother.
I think he. You know what? I think he likes abusive women. I do. I think he has like some kind of fetish.
Alicia, I don't know. That might be his niche. But definitely, is our brother. So, in the conscious conservative movement, and I had to post that comment because you guys put so well together. But working in this environment and we talk a lot of criticism about the Republican Party. What can you say that they have that as a selling point? If you had to sell the Republican Party, if you had to sell the GOP, what can we use to help people see that it's more to just a whole bunch of Nazis and white supremacists and all that?
Right. It's not that at all, actually. It's not that, in any way. But I always use this great example that my friend Christopher Arps said one time. I heard him say in an argument, and I have thought about it every day since. He was arguing with a white liberal. My friend Christopher is Black, and he is based in St. Louis, and he does a lot of work for the St. Louis GOP. And so this man, a very experienced man, and somebody, no, he was arguing with another Black liberal. That was it. And the person said, well, okay, you've pointed out a lot of issues with the Democrat Party, and some of the stuff you said actually makes sense. They do take my vote for granted, but what has the Republican Party done for me lately? You know, how can you point me to them and say that this is the other choice? What have they done for me? And Chris said, that is the difference between you and me. You want a political party that's going to do something for you. And I want a political party that is going to make sure that the laws in place are going to give me enough freedom to live my life, run my business, and raise my family, and then leave me the F alone. And to me, that is the best case I can make for the GOP. That, I mean, government doesn't want to leave you alone, so there's that you have to deal with. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. Government does not want to leave you alone. But the history of the GOP and the, quote, platform of the GOP is, we're not here to put our hands in your business. And I think that is a message that can sell to a lot of Black folks, because a lot of Black folks don't like folks in their business. You know, we're not here to get in your business. We're here to let you do your business and let you live your lives without us having our hands in it every day. The Democrat Party has been so great at messaging this idea that they're supposed to have their hands in our lives every day. But when we see what life is like when they don't, it's glorious. So that would be my selling point for the GOP. This is not a party that's going to do for you. This is a party that's going to back away and let you do for yourself, because they know that they don't know what's best for your life. You know what's best for your life, not them.
Can you tell us a little bit more? You talked about in the beginning how you grew up in Canada and moved here, and then you saw us going closer and closer to socialized medicine. Can you dispel some of the myths that Americans have about Canada because of the media or because of the left, and tell us a little bit from your experience of growing up there?
Yes, well, Canada does have summers. That is one thing. A myth, a popular American myth, is that Canada is a really peaceful country that people are very peaceful in and get along well. And there is this idea that there's no racism in Canada as well. Every election cycle, you know, when there's a Republican elected, there's always like the celebrity, like, I'm moving to Canada. And it's like my experience as a Canadian was horrifically racist. It's why I'm an American today. I grew up in Eastern Canada and I grew up on a small island, and I was subjected to racial abuse from kids and adults every day. And those people still exist. If you talk, it's such a white, to coin a phrase, it's such a white privilege attitude, right? Like any American that says Canada isn't racist has never talked to a Black Canadian. You know, they're like, go ask Black Canadians if they think that their experiences have been racism free in Canada. And I doubt you will find one who will say so. But there's the other thing about Canada Americans don't understand. It's more than just down here, the black white thing is what takes up our energy. Up there, it's the French English thing. That is huge. That is their own cultural war. And it's been raging for years the same way our racial war has been raging. And it has been violent. It does get violent. It gets violent from time to time. They are always, Quebec is always threatening to secede from the rest of the nation. There have been hostage taking situations. There have been terrorist situations where places get bombed. Canada also has a very precarious relationship with the Native Canadian community, or what they call First Nations up there. So there's no idea that Canadians are living blissfully. That's the idea you get because the picture of a Canadian you see in your mind is a middle-class white kid. That's not what Canada is. Canada is full of poverty. There's poverty all over Canada. You all might not see as many homeless folks, but that's because of the geography of Canada. It's too cold to be that homeless up there. But there's corruption and racism and sexism. Their prime minister has actually 2 or 3 sexual harassment accusations that he's fielding right now. So this idea that it's perfect up there because they have free healthcare. Well, nothing's free. It's free until you get your first paycheck and you see that half of your paycheck is gone off the top. You know, that's to go to your free healthcare that gets rationed to you as you get older. If you're younger, it works quite well. Once you get up until your older years, then you become an algorithm. And the government has to decide whether or not to give you treatments or give you tests if it's worth it. Well, this person might only have 6 years left to live. We're not going to waste life-saving cancer treatment on this person. We got to save it for this 19-year-old who has a much longer lifespan. So don't tell yourself lies. It's not perfect. This is the greatest country on earth right here that we're living in. You're in it. Just give it up.
So do you have a different perspective when you hear people saying socialism is creeping in and socialism is coming and Democrats are pushing socialism? How do you view that, and how do you explain it from knowing what it's like to live in a country that's more socialist than America?
Yeah, I mean, just imagine the government having permission to deny you anything based on what they give you. So I'll give you an example. One of the problems with putting the government in control of your healthcare is that it puts them in control of everything. Because once they own your healthcare, then every decision you make can be placed under the umbrella of, this is an expense. You're costing the Canadian taxpayer with your irresponsible decision making. You drink too much beer, therefore the government is going to limit how much beer gets sold in your region because you people drink too much beer, and that is something that happens. And so we have to do this, or else the system will collapse. We can't take care of all you sick people with our socialized medicine. So it's irresponsible to let you people treat yourselves like this. There was a child who, in the dead of winter, went onto a school playground alone when, like, I guess he snuck out of the class because it wasn't recess. Anyways, he got hung up on his scarf on a piece of playground equipment, and he died. He hung to death. Well, then the Canadian government said, we're going to ban scarves at school because every kid that is at risk for having their neck hurt or snapped or dying or almost dying is a cost to the Canadian taxpayer. So the only way to make sure that the Canadian taxpayer is safe from kids hanging themselves on playgrounds with their winter scarves is to make sure that no kid can have a winter scarf at school. So now winter scarves are illegal at school in the northernmost nation on earth. But see, once you let the government control that aspect of your life, they can justify controlling everything. So you need to stay away from it. The more power you give over one government, over one area of your life, and we saw this during COVID, right? It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. And what that does is, on the surface, if you don't think about that, you think, yeah, I am doing something for the greater good. That's a responsible thing to do. But when you dig into that, what it's saying is the government is making decisions for me that I should be making for myself, not because I'm always going to make the right decision, but because it is my right to make decisions.
And it's my right to make wrong ones too. So
and that's what's hard about it. That's what's hard about freedom. You have the ability to make wrong decisions, and your neighbors can make wrong decisions. And sometimes those wrong decisions can have sad consequences for you, or make you feel bad, or make you angry. But socialism is such a childish worldview. It ignores human nature and makes human nature something that can be controlled through numbers and algorithms.
That is interesting. How do you see this effect in 2022? Do you think the Republican Party has a chance to flip the House, the Senate? What do you think 2022 has in store for
Yeah, I don't know that it'll be decisive, just because I don't know. I don't have the exact count. This really isn't my forte of politics, but I don't have the exact count of how many seats are flipping in 2022. So I don't think it's that many that are up, but it's enough that Republicans can and probably will flip, which is why you're seeing Biden's press sec, right? Jen Psaki come out, all of a sudden now it's Republicans who want to defund the police. You know, that's a flip. That's because they're polling. Every time you see a confusing flip like that, you know, where you're like, wait, where'd this come from? How all of a sudden, wait, they just flipped that script. That's because they're polling. So polling probably started right around the time Biden took office. And so they're probably in their third round right now of internal polling. So nothing that me and you would have access to. But and I can tell you from the few slim sources I have on the Hill that they're not pleased, that they're scared, and they should be, because maybe in another election year they could get away with a lot of this stuff. But because COVID has stripped away so much of the creature comforts of American life, everyone's feeling everything a lot more. And so it's just all the suffering is just so much more obvious to so many more people. I do think they're in deep trouble. How the GOP can take advantage of it, I don't know. If anybody can snatch victory or snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it's the GOP. So I don't know.
All right. Do you have anything lastly you would like to say or address? We're about to get wrapped up out here, and I really enjoyed talking to you, and we could talk forever, but I don't want to hold you too much longer.
Thank you.
For anything that you need to plug or anything that you want to tell the audience?
Yeah, I've got a live show coming up in Cleveland this month, July 24th. So it'll be the day after my birthday. I'll be in the land, and it's our first live show. So if you want to come and hang out, we'll do a recording. I'm going to do a meet and greet afterwards, and I will be accepting birthday presents. So join you can get your ticket by going to eventbrite.com and look up Just Listen to Yourself. Eventbrite.com, Just Listen to Yourself, or look up Just Listen to Yourself on any of the social medias, and the links will be there. And come join me. Come meet me. It's my first live show. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what it'll be like. So it'll just be an adventure.
In Cleveland, right? And you said, what was that again?
In Cleveland. July 24th in Cleveland. It's at 6 p.m. It's a Saturday. It'll be at the Go Mode Cafe on St. Clair Avenue.
Awesome. Awesome. All righty, guys. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Miss Pinky Thoughts. And our guest was the beautiful Miss Kira Davis. And we thank you so much for joining us. And we would love to see you next time. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can be very aware the next time we have a new show. I'm glad you guys stayed with us through this episode, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye, guys. Thank you.